Hello, everybody, and welcome to Snow Day, your number one stop for reviews, rants, and ratings in the world of entertainment. I am your host, Hunter Verrill. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Snow Day. We're getting really good into the theme already. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Snow Day. My name is Hunter Verrill. Today, we're going to be talking about a little album called Everywhere at the End of Time. If you're wondering why I didn't cut out that little stutter there, it's because I unintentionally very well segmented us into what we're going to be discussing today, or what I'm going to be discussing today, because I'm the only person I know who was able to get through this entire thing. Everywhere at the End of Time is a 6.5 hour album that dives into the depths of dementia and how, the experiences that the brain goes through as it's eventually torn to pieces by, honestly, itself. It's utterly terrifying, but it sounds really nice. That's why I listened to it. Now, I have listened to the album once, and I have gone back and listened to certain stages. Now, the album is broken into 6 stages. The first 3 are 40 minutes, and the last 3 are about an hour and a half apiece. That makes about a 6.5 hour runtime. And the whole reason why it's broken into stages is because it's meant to show the progression of, dementia. Stage 1 is very straightforward, because although something is lurking, but you don't know what it is, but it's known that it's there. The songs that play throughout stage 1 are samples from 1920s singles, hits, etc., and they're pitched slightly differently and given a bit more static in order to really set the stage for memory loss and how it's introduced in the later stages. I'm going to try my best not to get into deep detail about the later stages, because if you do think that this is the kind of thing that you'd want to put yourself through, because I did enjoy it. You can enjoy something while still having been deeply affected by it, if that makes sense. But yeah, so the first stage is just meant to build the foundation of it, to let you know what to be listening for later on. Stage 2, things can be a little jumpy here and there, a sour no, a static pop is just a bit too loud, and although it's these little things, that's exactly what it wants you to think, because dementia doesn't just come in full swing. It starts out very slow and eventually ramps up to the point where you can't remember anything, and that's terrifying. But essentially, as the album goes on, things get progressively more distorted until there's eventually going to be something for you to find out. One thing I would warn is that if you are personally not into horror, psychological horror more specifically, maybe have someone describe it to you, maybe listen to it with someone. If you want the full experience, it would be listening to the whole thing in one go, in one room, by yourself. But again, that's very intimidating, and I totally understand if you don't want to do that. Listen to it however you want. You can even break it into little, segments. The stages are very much segmented, and they're so different from one another that they feel like different albums. You can do whatever you want and approach it in whatever way you want, because that's how art works. I can't tell you how to do it. It's not about what the artist intends, it's about what you perceive from it. One of my favorite things about this album, just in general, is how it manages to just, I've obviously not experienced dementia, or at least I hope not, but I'm able to have a much greater sense of how things work because the music aspect drew me in, and eventually I became, super curious about it. I did a bunch of research while listening to it. Not a good idea, let me say. But the whole thing just comes together so beautifully by the end. I was having my doubts in the beginning because I was like, okay, when are we going to get to the good part? But then you realize the good part is the beginning. The awful part is the ending. One of the funniest things that I've noticed just in my brief time researching it is that the very first song, called It's Just a Burning Memory, is a sample from a 1920 song called Heartache, and it's actually very slow compared to Heartache. I thought it sounded great, and I still do, but the thing is, there were so many times when I wanted to listen to this album, and I just never got past the first few songs. So It's Just a Burning Memory, I know inside and out. So much better than any other track on the album because of how much I listened to it before, listened to it during, and still listen to it now. But one of the funniest things is, And I didn't even catch this my first time through, and I imagine there are tons of other things that I'll miss until I go in a second, third, fourth, etc. time, is that that exact song is played in all 6 stages. But again, in order to build the sense of forgetting of dementia, it eventually becomes so distorted you can't even realize what it is until it's been explicitly told to you, this is just a burning memory. It's so disturbing that it could be so awfully distorted and just broken, but still be that, to the point where you can't remember it. And it's such a beautiful metaphor of how patients of dementia feel about their loved ones and people they used to know. It's an utterly horrifying experience, but it's still good. I'm gonna have to keep reiterating. Terrifying, sad, depressing, but great. I liked it. Another thing that I have, I experienced the first time through, but I had to do a bit of research on this, is that there are certain points in the later bits, and I'm not going to get too specific, but okay, let me preface this. Whoever came up with the word frog, like, props to them. That thing is a frog. The same props go to the person who dubbed the noises that I heard hell sirens, because, oh man, there is not a better word to describe the noises that I heard. They are horrific. I could not believe that I was hearing what I was hearing. I couldn't understand its existence. My mind was struggling. But again, for the millionth time, I feel like that is very much intended because it's meant to portray how dementia works through song, which was incredible. You could not have done this any other way. There are books that get made into movies. There are movies that get made into books. There are so many things that can be cross-media, but at the same time, everyone who's like a deep fan of these things knows that there is one perfect way to do it. Like how Marvel movies are obviously better than their book counterparts. I don't mean comic books, but I mean like when people make like scholastic books, so if your parents didn't bring you to the PG-13 movie that you could read that, obviously the movie is going to be better. For most books that get turned into movies, the book is usually better. In this case, Everywhere at the End of Time could not be anything else. It could not be a movie. It could not be a TV show. It is an album at heart. You could not turn it into any other medium and have it be nearly as effective as it is in the album format. Especially because of the length, but that's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the art. Another big thing about this album is that I understand the 6.5 hour runtime is certainly intimidating, and I did have to find like a really good time to just sit down and strap in. But there are plenty of ways to tackle it. Like I've mentioned earlier, you can break it into several small sittings in order to break apart the stages, or you can just set aside an entire evening. You know, if you've got no one else in the house and you really feel like giving yourself a panic attack, that's the easiest way to do it. I keep trying to recommend it, but I have to like continuously warn everyone listening, because just make sure that you're ready. It's going to be scary. There's going to be some things that you don't like to hear happening in that album, but I feel as though I've been able to grow as a person because I've experienced it. I feel as though there's some deep knowledge to be found within this 6.5 hour album that has elevated me beyond what I was before I'd heard it. And that's what all art albums should strive to be. Something that when you walk out of it, even if you are hurt by it, saddened by it, whatever, scared, whatever, that you can say that you're different for the better because of it. In terms of rating, because I know like ratings are a really popular thing for albums, I would have no idea what to give it, because there are stretches of the album that very purposely have to be, not going to spoil it, what they are in order to build the mood of the album and show you what is happening. Because even with the 6.5 hour time format, it is very clearly a time lapse. Like, You're not going to experience all of this in 6.5 hours if you're a dementia patient. It happens over the course of several months or even years. There's not going to be just I'd certainly hope that you wouldn't wish that there would just be 6.5 hours and then just over, but it's all about what you perceive things as, I guess. So, if you want to listen to this, give it a go. It's on YouTube. It's very popular. Know what you're getting into. Understand that at any point, if you're uncomfortable, you can pause it and just put it away. If you don't want to listen to it ever again, you never have to. I've got a couple of friends who they went to listen to it. They enjoyed the parts that they had, but they just couldn't take it, turned it off, went away. No shame in that whatsoever. All right. Thank you for listening. See you later. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next snow day.